Governor, as the executive of a significant state, I really admire you for your investment here and your patience and dealing all these things. My wife is a native of Colorado, from Fort Carson, there only briefly before her father was deployed to Vietnam. And just a last little biographical comment is that my wife and I both homeschooled our children, though we're the product of excellent public education and have had significant further education. That was the best choice for us. Sir, I commend you. You have been a consistent champion for school choice, and I very much applaud everything that you've done for the children of Colorado to ensure that a child's zip code is not the determinant factor of their quality of education. I'm personally saddened that school choice has become more partisan in recent years, although it looks like it's making a comeback. I'm excited about that. But it really shouldn't be a partisan issue. School choice is about giving every child a chance to succeed in life, no matter their circumstances. I did read your testimony, in case you think all is lost or we don't pay attention, but you said we can't rely on the old ways of doing things. I just invite your comments, sir. Can you explain briefly for this committee why you support school choice, and can you offer advice how we as Republicans and Democrats can come together on this issue? You've done this successfully, and I would like to learn.
I'll give you an example of a way in Colorado Democrats came and Republicans came together on school choice. So we're home to over 400,000 military families, like the family your wife was born into. Many people get stationed in Colorado, including people with young kids, at a different time of year than the traditional open enrollment season. And so many of them were effectively excluded from the open enrollment process, had to enroll in their neighborhood school, and many want to enroll in their neighborhood school. That's a fine choice. However, what we did through the state legislature, and I was able to sign a bill to do it, is we created a special open enrollment period, a different timeline for military families that are assigned to Colorado so that they can have their school of choice for their child, space permitting, of course. We have open enrollment within school districts and across school districts in Colorado. We also try to learn from schools that have a lot of demand and therefore need to have lotteries, and we're saying, what are they doing well? How do we expand or replicate that? Some of them are district schools, some of them are charter schools. It's not about the model of the school, it's about the quality and it's about the educational outcomes. Finally, I'd point out that what's good for one kid isn't necessarily good for another. I have two kids. Many on this committee have different kids, and you know that many kids have different learning styles. Some might want a hands-on outdoor experiential ed model. Some might want a more rigorous college prep model. Some might benefit from additional vocational or hands-on ways of learning. And while every possible model isn't necessarily available to every kid, we want to make sure that more kids across our state can access the education that works for them.
If I may, just to follow up, the model that's been talked about from a governance standpoint, a governing standpoint, and because you obviously have a very large responsibility in education in your state, I've seen that the resources should follow the child instead of the institution, and funding a child's education as a focus rather than a system. A lot of things you mentioned really talk about enrollment, in the public schools with some flexibility for charter. I think back to our own experience of extending that to parochial schools, to homeschooling, which was the right choice for our family. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions along those lines?
We do have many school districts and charter schools that partner with and support homeschooling families. I think what's missing from some of these models, like the Arizona model that's been touted on this panel, is the quality and accountability. How do we know it's working if we don't know there's student achievement? How do we make sure that if there's taxpayer resources being used, that there is quality? And so there needs to be some way of doing that, some structure for doing that, some accountability for doing that, some transparency into that, because these are public funds. Certainly we want to make sure that we can innovate with homeschools, with other kinds of schools, to make sure that as long as they're willing to have the transparency that accompanies public funds, there's a way to incorporate the innovation they bring.
Respectfully, just for the last 10 seconds, we homeschooled in 4 different jurisdictions: Washington State, briefly in Florida, New York State, and New York City, which of course is its own. And our son is a senior at Georgia Tech in aerospace engineering. So homeschooling did work in our case. Thank you for your comments, sir.